मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है। मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है। करते हो तुम कन्हैया मेरा नाम हो रहा है। मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है। मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है। पतवार के बिना ही मेरे नाव चल रही है। मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है। मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है। पतवार के बिना ही मेरी नाव चल रही है। मेरा आपकी कृपा से सब काम हो रहा है. I'd just like to tell you all the meaning of this song, as with every song that I gravitate towards these days. There's some reason behind it, there's some message behind it, there's some beauty behind it, right? So this song is basically saying, is a song to God, right? Or the God within someone else, right? So it's basically saying, with your blessings, my work is being successfully accomplished. With your blessings, my work is being successfully accomplished. For what you have done and what you are doing, I am receiving the credit. And my boat is advancing even without the need for oars. The entire world is amazed, and even the destination is being found. Apart from serving you, there is nothing else that I do yet. Everything I set out to achieve is being accomplished. Because you are with me, I find myself wanting nothing else. I have no desire for any other thing in this world. With you, my devotion has become a beautiful thing. I am not even worthy, nor am I fully able to understand you. And I always wondered, with my broken voice, how am I able to even sing to you? But all these miracles are happening within your inspiration. For what you are doing, I am being given the credit. And through your grace, my work is being fulfilled or accomplished. Right? This is a very beautiful song, as you all can tell. So, welcome again to co-creating your reality. Where I know I said that I concluded that conversation yesterday, but after I made a video last night until this morning, I feel like I was just receiving these energetic stares. I'm not even talking to anybody really these days, but I'm very sensitive to energy and stuff, and I have been feeling these energetic glares basically at me regarding that video probably that I did and put out into the public regarding race and thing. You know, any conversation surrounding race, ethnicity, these things is like, it is basically like the tip that needs to trip off somebody, or to get their nerves, to set fire under the skin, right? Or to get on somebody's nerves. One of the ways that you can really get on somebody's nerves is to just raise a conversation on race or ethnicity, right? Is the one thing that never fails. Race and ethnicity, that topic, is the one thing that never fails to really rile up people, or rile up people's emotions and whatever, right? in most times a negative way, right? But I wanted to continue and go into a deeper talk about this with this conversation to end it to a fun thing and done with this once and for all, right? So this conversation though is about not just that, but the topic is surrounding generational curses, right? And the breaking of generational curses, which is what I know I was incarnated to do, right? I was gonna say believe, but it's not a belief, right? It's a fact, it's knowledge, right? Is what I know that I incarnated here to do, right? And throughout my journey, right, I would have been doing that, but in portions, right? In portions and small amounts throughout my journey in this life. So I just want to clarify, not that I need to justify or clarify anything, but you know how this topic of races rile up people, right? So I know there might be people thinking that I am being hypocritical. This video is for people who rather die than use the 2 brain cells that they're capable of using, right? This video is for those who rather die than utilize 2 of their many brain cells, right? In other words, people who incapable of understanding English and incapable of understanding anything at all, right? So I will be repeating certain things and clarifying certain things, right? So you all know for all my life I've been involved in inter-ethnic relationship or interracial relationship, however you want to call it, right? Let's not try and be politically correct. We not in the classroom, right? For all my life I've been involved in interracial relationships, right? So my video yesterday may have come as a shock, right? May have come as a shock to some people because this is something that I've fought for my entire life to date, right? Like being involved with someone of another race was something that I have fought for, right? For my entire life. But I don't know if this fight has been reciprocated. And in my last experience, I realized that is not really the case. I was not being fought for, right? Despite me wanting to fight. And this had nothing to do with race, just generally fighting for me, right? In which I would have done wrong to someone, sought their forgiveness, sought his forgiveness, and thought that we could have worked out after, but I was wrong about that, right? And I am glad to know that I was wrong about that, because it means that that person, my ex, actually has boundaries in his life and is not willing to put up with, hey, well, if you was unfaithful to me, if you was dishonest to me, I have my boundaries regarding that, and I will not allow anybody to take advantage of me in that way again. I am actually pleased to know that, despite me actually really was pushing for us to work more and stuff, because I really do still care about that person a whole lot, right? So that being said, right, so I would have, but that aside, we're talking about ethnicity here. For all my life I would have fought for, and not many would understand this battle or the struggle of being someone of an entrenched East Indian background, right, with family, villagers, and the whole plethora of society. Basically, you all know how society is. Judgmental, 1, always have an opinion on everything. 2, not basing their opinion on anything regarding reality. 3, right? And just gossip, right? That's just how society is. And from what I gathered, a lot in the spiritual community is just like that too, right? So, anyhow, not many would understand the struggle, the battle, the internal war that it is or it has been for me to reach this point in my life, or for me to even get through this series of battles to reach the point where I am now. It was like my entire life was a battlefield regarding specific issues, right? Regarding, not saying, this is not to make myself be a victim, that's the last thing, right? But regarding specific social issues, my life has been a battlefield in which I have had to fight for certain things at certain points in my life, right? In order to reach this current point where I am standing here right now, right? So that's why many would find it strange or as a shock or even hypocritical when you're not using your brain cells. And you look at my video yesterday when I was like, well, XYZ about race, that's because I've been placed in an interracial relationship is not the solution and whatever, right? I've been placed in a myriad of a diverse range of experiences throughout life so that I can see things from every single angle, right? From whether it's regarding race, whether it's regarding sexuality, regarding various issues, right? I've been placed in such a diverse range of situations where have to come to terms with what is reality versus what is not reality, right? Personal experience one thing, my university one thing. There's no it is by no accident at all that I actually studied sociology. I actually signed up to do economics and then I ended up signing up to do psychology, and sociology was the, by the way, a degree that I picked up as a second major, a second degree, right? A secondary degree, right? But this all happened by no accident, right? It was all placements in my life, right? It was all placements in my life so that I could come to understand situations, people from different angles, right? And come to my own understanding, right? So that's what I was saying. People come to the understanding of truth or reality and by different means. Some might read a million books, right, to weed out the inconsistencies in life and in coming to their understanding of truth. But with my life, I have a unique life story, and what helped me or what pushed me to weed out my inconsistencies is my life experience. Right? So as you all know, I would have been involved in several inter-ethnic, interracial relationships, right? But in my understanding or deriving of truth, which is beyond all these social issues, social characteristics and demographics and so on. Now, when I my fight with regard to race, it was for a particular period in time and it was for a particular purpose. One of my purpose here, as I was saying, in my previous set of videos, my grandmother on my mother's side would have been involved in an inter-ethnic relationship, and that would have sparked village and family controversy and so on, where people would have looked down on my mom for being in this. So stigma was attached to the family and to the side of the family and so on, right? Stigma from villagers, from society would have been attached. And I knew that one of my purpose here was to break the curse of people watching you based on who you love and judging you for that, right? I was here for a period of time to break the curse of somebody watching you and you being affected by that, right? Me, right? So break the curse of me or my future generation, my lineage, right? To break the curse of me being affected. So I just explained how this generational curse breaking operates, how it happens, right? So when you say, what does it mean to break a generational curse? What does it mean, right? So my parents or my mom, right, and her side family would have suffered the consequences or the effects of villagers and so on looking down on them, right, for that act of their mother leaving an Indian man, which was her husband, right, who she was not happy with, and getting involved in an inter-ethnic relationship with, I guess, I don't know if that person would have treated her better and so on, but whatever the reason, it doesn't matter, right? Now, the family would have suffered the consequences of that based on racism, racial tension, so on at the time, right? And what does it mean to break a generational curse? To break the effects that this has, that people's opinion has on you or people's opinion had on your family, right? So being that person, being a generational curse breaker, means that you have to have a strong personality, means that you have to be unaffected by many things of this world, right? This is just to clarify a little bit about my journey, right? Being a generational curse breaker, what does it mean? It means that you have to have a personality, a character. You have to go through a series of tests in life, experiments in life, tests in life, trial by fire in life, right? To develop your character or your personality to be one that you really don't give a flying fuck about what anybody else think about certain aspects of your life. That is breaking the generational curse. Breaking the implications or the effects that people's opinions have on you regarding how you choose to live your life once as you are not hurting anybody else and stuff, right? Breaking the effects because when people gossip about you, when people talk about you, this is basically negative. I don't want to use the word witchcraft or anything, but it's negativity that is being sent towards you, it's attacks. And being a generational curse breaker means that you have to withstand, or you have to have a spirit that is great enough to withstand those attacks coming from all different directions, right? To withstand the impact of all these attacks, verbal attacks, spiritual attacks, and so on, coming towards you for actions that really not harming anybody else, right? This is what it means to break a generational curse. So throughout my life, for most of my life, I was of the opinion that, okay, well, this was the sole reason that I incarnated, right? That I incarnated to break the ethnic generational curse and therefore probably have a Dogla baby. So this ties into my conversation from yesterday, right? Maybe if I have a Dogla baby, right, this would break that generational curse, right? But I've come to understand today that it was the actual process, right? It was the process of being involved in an inter-ethnic relations was the process of breaking the curse, and I don't need to have a baby of a particular race to do that, right? The process, going through the process of being involved in an inter-ethnic relationship, which was something that I had to redo stemming from my grandmother days, right? I had to redo this so that I would withstand the same attacks that she would have had to withstand, right? And her children would have had to withstand, right? I would have had to redo this process, withstand that trial by fire, and absorb that and let it bounce off of me so that my children will not have to go through that process. That if I have to have a child, my child will not have to go through that, because I understand now that my child, I'm not going to be any parent who say, hey, you have to like this person, or you have to, I am not going to judge you based on who you love and these kind of things, right? Definitely not, right? So as opposed to things that me or my generation would have had to go through, right? So this is how this generational curse breaking goes. It just means a refinement of your spirit so that you will be able to withstand all the tests, and redo certain things from previous generations, so that your children will not have to go through, or my children will not have to go through these types of suffering, or mental, emotional suffering, right? Like we would have had internal suffering that we would have had to go through to get to where we are, right? So the process, right? So nobody would have understood my mental process or my internal suffering to reach to the point where I could literally, things that people judge so heavily for, like my ex, right, who is still my best friend, right? So people will not understand this scenario, that where how much mental suffering I would have had to endure to reach to the point where I could literally be normal, and I could have, as being in a relationship, take him home and him being comfortable at home, and my parents actually sometimes before my parents ask how I going, they would ask where him, or ask for him before they even ask how I going, right? So and I was glad for that, right? I was glad for that, right? But the process to get there was not an easy process, right? The process to get there was not an easy process, but it was a curse that I broke. And it was a curse that everybody all the inter-ethnic relationships I had would have in some way led up to or contributed to that breaking of a generational curse. And so we, right, this is not something that I am doing on my own. We as a spiritual community or a spiritual team, right, would have been involved in helping to break these generational curses. So in no way am I taking credit, because this is not about breaking a generational curse in my earthly family alone, because there are a hell of a lot of generational curses and also spiritual family, my soul family, spiritual family, right? And to date, I've come to realize that race or ethnicity is actually the least of the issues in the plethora of generational curses that I actually came here to break, right? Race or ethnicity, and this is why I'm tying this back into yesterday's conversation, to really let people know, because some people, all they see is race, right? Everything is race, everything is ethnicity, right? You could be talking about any topic in the world, but the most important topic to them is race for some reason, right? And it's actually the least of the problems or the issues, because it should, at this point in history, race should not be a topic to be harped on, right? It should be understood that we are all equal beings and so on, right? Race should not even be a topic to be harped on, right? But it is, and so we have to address it, right? Just like how eating meat shouldn't have to be a topic we have to harp on. It should be common sense knowledge that we should not consume meat, right? But we have to continue harping on it because it is still a problem, right? But I plan to give up this conversation on race after today, right? After I clear up all these issues, right? So race actually, ethnicity is actually, what I've come to realize today is that ethnicity is actually one of the least of the issues that I was here to address, right? And that is why I would have said in my video yesterday that, hey, race or inter-ethnic relationships is not the solution. And at the time, in the past, I would have thought it to be the solution, because to my knowledge at the time, or understanding at the time, I was functioning in that social space where race was the predominant thing in my mind, right? Or love and race was the predominant thing in my mind, right? And I was functioning out of that capacity, thinking that, hey, maybe this could, because I would have seen, and it was, race as the social problem, right? Race and racial tension, racial issues at the time was the social problem, right? The problem. And my aim, I just taught myself as a problem solver to let me try and solve the problem, right? Let me try to solve this problem, right? And my journey of solving this problem included being involved with somebody of a different race, right? And it so happened that I also, is not just that, but I also fell in love and loved deeply, right? So that's just how my life happened to turn out. But as I stand here today and reflect, it is the least of the issues of the plethora of generational curses that I came here to break, some of which have absolutely nothing to do with these social demographics, but it has to do with things like communication, things like internal family dynamics, and a whole host of issues that, major issues, but minor things, if you know what I mean, right? It's the little things that actually do matter, right? So we all make mistakes, we all grow from our mistakes, and that's what I was saying, is that inter-ethnic relationships, they might not solve, whilst it is cute and beautiful to see and adore, which I still adore to date, it does nothing for the solving of slavery, right? Because you can have how much inter-ethnic relationships in the whole wide world, right? It does not solve the problem of human slavery on earth, right? Because it has nothing to do with us actually withdrawing ourselves, or it has nothing to do with us participating in moral action, or lack of participation in moral action. What it is about, though, is about activism, about social issues and so on. It could spark those debates, right? It does a lot in terms of sparking debates on social activism and all this thing, right? But as I was saying, as my thought process expanded, as my vision expanded, race actually became a secondary issue and is not the forefront issue, is not the forefront topic of discussion, rather morality or simply doing the right thing, which could include being involved in an interethnic relation, or it does not have to include being involved in an interethnic relationship, right? It doesn't matter, as I was saying, it does not matter.